Good evening everyone, and welcome to our webinar for the Year 4 parents with students coming into our middle school for next year in Year 5. So good to have you with us this evening, and I hope that your child has come home today really excited by what they got to do and what they got to see in our middle school today. My name's Glenn Urain and I'm the head of middle school, and I've been doing this for a few years now, and it's an absolute honour to be able to do it and to serve God in this way. And I hope that you really get a wonderful overview tonight of all that middle school has to offer, and I'm hoping that you'll walk away from your screens this evening thinking, that was excellent, I can't wait for my child to start in middle school, and what an exciting step it is for them. I've got some others on my side here this evening, and I'm just going to run through some introductions now. So here's the Year 5 team. We've got Mr. Peter Buchan, and he has Class 5B. We have Mr. Craig Anderson, who is an apology for tonight. His daughter is at her graduation ceremony tonight, or celebration anyway, and so we miss him tonight, and I'll be filling in and talking about the Discovery Inquiry class at the end of this evening's presentation. And last but certainly not least is our Year Advisor for Year 5, Mrs. Angie Sinclair. And
Hello,
she teaches Class 5S. And you'll hear a little bit more from Mr. Buchan and Mr. Sinclair later, and they're also going to be available for the Q&A session a little bit later too. Okay, all right. Well, let me tell you a little bit about our middle school first of all. I hope that you'll get a good sense of what middle schooling is all about. No doubt there's a few of you that are still unsure as to why St Philip's has a middle school as opposed to just having a primary school, then a secondary school. And it'd be good for you to have a good understanding of that, all of the kinds of things that we do here in our middle school, and also all of the opportunities that exist for your children, as well as talking about the Discovery Inquiry class at the end. Well, why have a middle school? There's many reasons for this, and it was in the mid-90s that all of the St Philip's organisation made the decision that we'll go with a middle school for years 5 to 8. There's two main reasons that I'd like to talk about. Firstly, it's all about relationship. We know it's an incredibly important time between the ages of 10 and 14 that your child feels connected. It's one of those times where if they don't feel connected, their sense of belonging and engagement and interest in school wanes a lot, and that can actually impact their future studies and beyond. So it's really important that we get to have that or build that relationship. We're like a mini school within a larger school, so that gives us the opportunity to be able to put everyone in the theatre and talk to them collectively. For all of the teachers to get to know all of the students within middle school, which is about 250 to 270 students. It gives us an opportunity to run clubs and organise activities with those students. We can run core classes where they can get to know their teacher very well. You'll hear more about that soon. So relationships really important, and we feel that we do that very well in our middle school. The second major reason for having a middle school is to keep your child engaged. As I alluded to earlier, it's really important to keep them engaged and loving and liking and being happy at school. If they feel that way when they arrive, they will do better, and research suggests that. They will do better if they want to be there. And so it's really important for us that we engage your child. And that happens because a lot of kids, when they get to 10 or 11, will start to, you might have heard it already, but for the first time say, oh, I don't like school, or I hate school, I don't want to go to school. That's a fairly common thing, and I must say around Australia. And our hope is that your child will go, oh, I love school, and they keep loving school. Because it's a common thing in kinder, year 1, for lots of kids to say that, not all. But sometimes that drops a little bit as they reach about 10 or 11 years of age. So by having lots of engaging activities, by having teachers that really understand the pre-adolescence and early adolescence helps enormously. And being able to have classes that are going to keep the kids excited, where there's a little bit of movement and a little bit of change, and all of those sorts of things that will keep them on their toes with their learning and wanting to learn more and more. And hopefully that will come through tonight in the ways that we keep them engaged and happy to be at school. At this point, I'd like just to pause and say that there is a Q&A section on the webinar. You'll hopefully notice that on Zoom down towards the bottom of the screen. If you click on that, that gives you an opportunity to be able to ask a question to the panel, and they're going to get sent through to my phone, and I'll pick those up and answer those a little bit later. Okay? So please feel free to utilise that. I'm going to now hand over to Angie, who's going to talk a little bit about core classes, which is so important for that relationship building.
I'm really excited about next year, 2021. We've got 3 core classes next year. We've got Year 5B, we've got Year 5S, and we have Year 5, 6A joining us, and they'll be doing the Year 5 curriculum. When we say the Year 5 curriculum, we mean as far as the geography goes, as far as the history goes, but we really target for differentiation. It's an exciting year. It's an exciting year together. One thing that I do want to really make you aware of, that we work very closely together. Your students may have told you today the walls are genuinely open all the time. Mr. Bucket and myself, we work probably as one, not as two, and by the end of the year the students really don't know who their core teacher is, because they've got the 3 of us, and it's so exciting to have Mr. Anderson come along as well. Just got my notes here, I'll refer to those. We have specialist teachers in art, in PE, in science as well, and in science labs, so that's very exciting. The classes are in ability groups for mathematics, so we take some input from the Year 4 results, as well as we do some of our own testing when they get over here. So for maths they're split, and also for spelling, so we can cater for their needs. We usually have our English and our writing together as well, so that the children are hearing the same thing, and it's a really great way to support the students that need learning support, but also the students that we need extension with. They're extended and they can go off with one of the teachers as well. So it works really, really well. I'm the year advisor for Year 5. I like to advise Mr. Urain, but he doesn't usually listen to me. I like to advise Mr. Buchan and Mr. Anderson. They don't listen to me, so I'll just advise the kids generally. So if there's any hassles, the first port of call is your classroom teacher, but we talk closely together all the time, so if you need to contact Pete or Craig or myself, we will talk about it, and if we can't handle it, we bring our mate Glenn in, but please know that you're very supported. Bathurst, I've got the dates here for you for next year, so if you're planning anything, the dates for Bathurst are the 1st to the 3rd of September, so we leave very early on the morning of the 1st of September, and we get back late Friday afternoon on the 3rd of September. But we'll speak more about that next year. My biggest piece of advice for next year with your students, if they're a little bit nervous, is to talk to them like this. Yeah, it's middle school. They've been in the buildings before. They've walked across to the canteen. If they're nervous, say, you know, when you went from Year 3 to Year 4, it's the same thing. You're going from Year 4 to Year 5, but it's called middle school. So don't be threatened by the term middle school. It's just going from Year 4 to Year 5. You'll have a different timetable, you'll have different teachers, but you'll still just be as loved. It's an exciting time. Year 5 is one of my favourite classes to teach, and working with these guys, it is just, I can't explain it. I get all teary. I just love it, and we look forward to having your children, and today was just magic. So thank you for sharing them with us, and we look forward to next year. So thank you very much, Mr. Urain.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. I must say that the core teachers are, the Year 5 team particularly, are just such an incredible group of professionals, and your children are going to be in such good hands. So Year 5 and 6, they'll be with their core teacher for around about 60 to 70% of the time. And that's for some of those major subjects like English, history, geography, personal development and faith and life, those sorts of subjects. Then they will be going to science, as Angie has said, library, drama, visual arts, PE with other staff members. So they'll actually get that opportunity to see science labs, as you might have noticed from that photo I shared earlier, that they get to use actually spaces that kids at primary schools don't normally get to use. And I guess with core classes, it's really important for our Year 7s and 8s as well, that they get a teacher who is their main teacher. So there's a little bit of a nurturing primary school feel in Year 7 and 8 that carries through, and it's a wonderful transition. It's a much gentler transition than Year 6 into a high school, from all the experience I've had.
Can I pop in there? What we love about that with Glenn is when you see your Year 5s going to Year 6, Year 7 and then Year 8, the relationship that you develop is really magic. And if they start making poor choices, you've built that relationship and you can go, come on mate, no, you can do this. So the relationship just doesn't stop in Year 5. It carries on, and it's such a pleasure to see the children then go to Year 12 and they come back to you and they say, remember when we came into Year 5? So middle school, as Glenn said, is this nurturing playground, for want of a better word, for these beautiful little people to grow and develop, and that relationship does go across Stage 3, Stage 4, Stage 5 and Stage 6.
Yeah, thanks Angie. Okay, we've already covered a bit of this on ability-based classes, but yeah, mathematics is in ability-based levels, and in Year 8, English is also as a bit of a preparation for what's to come in senior school. Apart from that, there's the Discovery Enquiry class, which is sort of a tangent to that as well. But as I said, I'll speak to those parents about that class at the end of this presentation tonight. Okay, Angie's also spoken about herself as a year advisor, but each year group has a year advisor. And yeah, when things perhaps need to be dealt with across a whole year group, it could be a wellbeing presentation, it might be even a reward afternoon, those sorts of things. The year advisor will oversee those sorts of things. They run year group meetings, and they only have that year advisor for 1 year in middle school. When they get into senior school, the year advisor stays with them for the remainder of their journey through St Phillips. But in middle school, we've got a core teacher who's also a year advisor, just because that relationship building is so important, and to have them in and amongst the kids each day makes a big difference with regard to that. You know, if you want to speak to the core teacher, you can, but if you feel like you need more advice, then you might go to the year advisor before seeking myself. And if you need to go to the Deputy Principal, Mr McKinnon, or indeed to the Principal, Mr Telfer, of course, that is still available to you. You'll have heard a lot about MacBooks. I'm sure there's a few Year 4 kids that have come home recently talking about how excited they are about MacBooks. I'm going to hand over to Mr Buchan, who'll tell us a little bit more about those now.
So the MacBooks are a wonderful tool, and for many of our middle school students, it's actually one of their highlights of middle school is receiving their MacBook. And it always blows us away with the work that they're able to produce on these things. They're not just a research tool or a presentation tool. The kids take it well beyond where we might program or plan for an activity or a lesson. The kids just take it to places we didn't expect, and they go and use their MacBooks and show us some really good creative ways of presenting work. We also use them for things like Lego robotics, for coding, for design, for 3D printing, website and web page creation, movie making, podcasting. There's just a boundless amount of things that the students can use their MacBooks for school related tasks. So there's a bit of a process that we do undertake with MacBooks. You're not going to get a device coming home on day one that will appear on your kitchen bench. There is a process that we undertake at school. For the Year 5s, we pull back, so they will not get it in the first part of the term. And we go through a bit of a process with the students, so setting them up with, this is what you're going to get, this is how we're going to use it, go through a bit of a licensing process. So there is a bit of a process involved before you'll start to see a device come home next year. And that'll be a little bit different as well if you've had children already come through middle school, just in that time frame of when you might start to see a MacBook home, where we're delaying that process a little bit just to really make sure that we've developed some really good habits for you and your child as well with those MacBooks. So more info will come about that next year when we start talking about MacBooks in term 1. But a really exciting tool.
Yeah, absolutely, thanks Pete. I really love it when they, particularly in Year 7 and 8, when they're doing things like web page designs and 3D printing, when they're doing architecture, SketchUp type designs, when we see them doing podcasting and movie making, coding and all of these sorts of things. It really is amazing. So Yeah, it's made a really big difference to our school, and of course remote learning was just made so much easier because we had the MacBooks and we had platforms set up, and it made for a very smooth transition all in a really difficult circumstance. We have so many opportunities for your children here in our middle school, and I won't spend a long time on them, but I always, at every enrolment interview, which most of you haven't been able to be part of, like I don't do the enrolment interviews with our year 4 into 5 students, but this is the kind of thing I like to share with them. So here's your opportunity to hear about it. You'll get a little bit of a taste of what we offer on the screen there, but I'll just click through these, and this might say it better than I could. I'll talk about the camp soon.
Is this because you can't read, Mr. Ray?
That's right. More to come yet. While this is clicking through, I've got to say that we have the most dedicated staff that just love putting their hand up for things and just jump in at a moment's notice. When they see that there's a need, they put up their hand and say, let me do that. I'd like to be a part of that. What can I do to further help with this opportunity for the kids and the children of middle school? And we're really, really blessed in that way. And I'm hoping that your children will actually make the most of the opportunities that come their way. Some students just do so many things at the school, and again there's a relationship to how much you get involved in and how well you do at school. I've seen kids come into our school and only rock up to class and go home again. You know, I've seen other students get involved in Duke of Edinburgh, go to Vanuatu, involved in serving, Red Shield appeal, sporting teams, join clubs and groups at lunchtimes. And it's amazing how we see those students at the end of year 12 and how well they do because they've actually invested themselves in their learning. So all I can do is encourage your child to get involved when they see something that they're interested in. Now, some of these activities, we'll send home a list similar to the one that I hope you can see on your screen now. I won't spend long going through it, but we'll send this home, and it's got the teacher that's actually running each group. Now, this was affected by COVID. We couldn't do all of it this year, and some were postponed and some we had to cancel. But you get a little bit of an idea as I scroll through of those different activities that we offer. And you'll receive a new one of those in the new year for the 2021 extracurricular activities. And again, it'd be great for you to sit down with your child and talk about, you love this, here's the strength of yours, why don't you get involved in that, and then get in touch with the teacher who runs it, or your child can. Some of them you put your name down to enter the group or try out for the group or the team or whatever it might be. Others, it'll just be simply putting up your hand.
Mr. Rain, I'll also cut in there that this is another blessing with middle school. Mr. Buchan's involved in extracurricular, but I'll speak about my experience and you might like to speak about yours. Although you're the year 5 teacher, so to speak, I have the absolute pleasure of attending the year 7 camp every year because you've already got that relationship with the children. There's a lot of children who still get homesick. There's a lot of children with dietary needs, and because you've started that journey in year 5 and you're aware of their needs, it's beautiful to travel through with them, go to these camps, and they know there's that safe person. And then the next journey, say for example Duke of Edinburgh, and I did the Silver, and to be sitting in the boat watching these kids that you had in year 5 paddling beside you, doing I don't paddle, just put it out there, I don't paddle, I sit on the boat, I'm the princess, and watching them, Mr. Urain paddles, watching them, and the relationship's already there. What a privilege. You don't get that in every school. Once you pass your kids on, after you've had them in year 5, that's it. Here, we literally travel the journey with them, so it's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to talk a little bit more on those camps, so we've got Bathurst, as we've already heard about. In year 6, they go to the Snow as their major excursion, and Canberra. Actually, I should do that reverse. They go to Canberra, and then we squeeze in a day at the Snow. It's awesome. Actually, when we ask the year 8s at the end of year 8 what their favourite memory in middle school was, quite often they say year 6 excursion or Canberra excursion.
Excuse me, Bathurst.
Anyway, so it's a great excursion, and the kids love it, with Parliament House and Questacon and all those wonderful things in Canberra. And then Year 7, we've got a camp at the start of the year, and we go down to the basin in the northern beaches of Sydney. We catch a ferry across with camping gear. We've got a barge that takes gear. It's so much fun. And then we have stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, a hike they go on. They're cooking their own food, pitching their own tent, cleaning up after themselves.
Chasing goannas. Keeping wallabies out of your tents.
This is just the good stuff.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
But we also, the best thing about it, I love, is that we put them into like tribes, and then they don't get to choose their tribe. It's kind of like Survivor. We have all these Survivor tasks for them to complete, and it's a lot of fun. In Year 8, we also have a camp in week 6 of term 1, so they're held simultaneously. We go to the Barrington Tops, to a place called the Steps of Gerber, and we've got the kids setting up camp there, again pitching tents, cooking their own food, but there's some bigger challenges for them. There's some wonderful kayaking and river rafting on the river there with the rapids. We have a jump rock into the water, which is about 3 or 4 metres high. That's a little bit of a heart starter, but even more of a heart starter is the 12-metre abseiling cliff. It takes a lot of courage to get down that one, but it's so good for building character. And we've got about an 8-kilometre hike, which is great too. So that's in and amongst a lot of other smaller activities in between all of those. And we also have day excursions throughout every year group as well. We'll tell you more about those as they come up. We also have something called Slum Survivor in Year 8, which is really enjoyable. We use the basketball courts here at school. We get the kids to bring in cardboard and tarpaulins and all of that everyday equipment and set up a little slum village. The whole purpose of this, well, there's a few different purposes, but we want to give them an idea of what it's like to live in a slum or a really poor area of the world, to eat nothing but rice, drink nothing but water for 24 hours, and just gives them a tiny sense of what it might be like to live like that. Because after 24 hours, all of the kids are hungry, cold, tired, and just want to go to McDonald's down the road. And that means that we've sort of hit the point when they actually have to imagine, let's do it again tomorrow, and then the next day and the next day. Another great part of doing Slum Survivor is that we're raising money through sponsorship for our friends in Vanuatu. And we didn't get to do it this year, and hopefully we will get to do it next year. But we take the Year 8s, after they've raised the money for our friends in Vanuatu, we take a group of Year 8s over there to a slum village and the school that they go to. We stay at the school, we help the students and children and families there. So it's a real blessing, and it's a great way to serve within our middle school. So something to look forward to, and there's a second chance in Year 10 as well in senior school for Vanuatu. A wonderful opportunity. Okay, I just would like to go through some middle school policies and procedures, and this is, I mostly go through this just to give you a little bit of an idea as to how we will run some of the more major things in middle school, and maybe some of the things that you've already heard about. The information I'm going to share is really thoroughly covered in our parent handbook, so you should be able to see that on your screen now. You'll receive a new one of those for 2021 in the new year, and it's an A to Z of everything middle school. So you can go through that, and if you want to look up mobile phones or the behaviour management system or middle schooling in general, those things are all in that handbook. So you'll receive that soon enough, and hopefully you'll be able to find the things that you want to know about. I also generally have an enrolment booklet for our new families coming, and some of the new families might be watching this evening, and you'll remember receiving that, but that was just a snapshot of the parent handbook, so everything from that is covered in the handbook. I won't go through these in a lot of detail, but give you a little bit of an idea as to what I speak with new families about with regard to the Code of Conduct. I don't go through the entire Code of Conduct, but talk about the bottom part of it that says have the right attitude. All of our children from kindergarten to Year 12 are expected to follow the Code of Conduct, but if they have the right attitude, all of that Code of Conduct will look after itself. And that means as they're walking through the school gate, we want to see them saying, I want to be at school. I've got my equipment, I'm ready to go. I've got the pencil case, I've got my rulers, I've got my MacBook fully charged. I'm wearing my uniform and I'm happy to wear it properly. And I will wear it properly. I'll look for chances to serve others and to help others out. And if that's their attitude, then they're going to find St Philip's and our middle school a very easy place to be and a really enjoyable place to be. I guess the opposite to that is having the wrong attitude, and everything becomes a lot more difficult when you don't come to school with that kind of right attitude to begin the day. You might also see a couple of triangles with the behaviour management system there. That top triangle is just the system that we have in place to protect your child's learning. I think we've all had children in our classes at school that would be disruptive or distracting to us in our learning. That top triangle just sort of goes through the process of what we would do, which is normally a warning, second warning before the teacher will have a chat to your child or the child in the classroom that's causing a concern. And if they still can't get it right after that, they get sent to my office, and then I'll get them to do a reflection sheet and we'll be talking it through at that level. But we're pretty firm on that, and we want the kids to really follow that, because I don't want your child's learning to be disrupted heavily by another child in the class or another student in the class. So yeah, we actually only have up to a maximum of 10 send-outs to my office in the school year before we'd say it might be time for a new school. But I've got to tell you, I don't think we've ever gone past 3 or 4 in a school year. So that might tell you that, you know, most of our kids are doing the right thing most of the time. In fact, I said to the kids today, nearly all of our kids do the right thing nearly all of the time. I'd love to be able to say all of them all the time. Unfortunately, I can't. But I tell you what, we've got a really good reputation because it's something that we stick closely to. Now, there's a lot of grace given along the way, and that bottom triangle is the goal achievement levels or booklets that we'll actually give to students who have made poor choices, like if they've continued making poor choices. So maybe a couple of send-outs, we might give them a yellow book, which is low level. A blue level is for more significant things like teasing another student as a one-off or that kind of thing. Might be just swearing aloud on the playground where people could hear it, the teacher heard it, whatever. That's blue level. Red, that's more about the serious kinds of things that might not go so well in the playground. So it may be bullying, or it might be any kind of physical hurting of another student. And that comes with a suspension of some sort. It might be a school one, or it might be an at-home one too. Before purple level, which is probation and sort of last chance. Now I'll go through that because I want you to feel like your child's learning and their time here at school is protected, and they'll feel safe and secure to be at school. And we want to maintain the wonderful culture that we already have in our middle school. You might have heard about these demerit things. I like to call them reminders. I talked about having the right attitude before. If your child starts to stop bringing in homework, or they're turning up late to class, they don't have the right uniform, then they might get a demerit. One demerit, it's not a big deal, but it is just a reminder to say, oh, by the way, just remember that's what you need to do with regard to that, okay? If, however, they keep doing the same thing over and over, then we might go on to those goal achievement books. Your child will have a diary, and they've already started practicing using diaries in Year 4 this term and doing homework similar to the kinds that they'll see in Year 5 as well. Okay? Uniform information, well, most of you will know that, and the uniform shop is next to the admin building, and all of the information on that will come out in the student information book in the summer holidays, but obviously it'll be 2021, and it covers lots of other things like equipment, canteen, PTF, fees, etc. So look in that for all of your other needs with regard to setting your child up for the school day or the school year. We love communication, and it's one of those things that we know gives you and us and your child, most importantly, a really much better experience at school when we're hearing what's going on, or we can tell you what's happening. It's really good for you to be able to get in contact with us. Generally, the teacher or teachers will respond to you within a couple of days if you've asked a question, or you've just emailed them, or you require a phone call. Sometimes it'll be immediately, other times it might take longer depending on what they need to do. But of course you can get in contact with us via email, by ringing the school, front office or the middle school office is fine, and of course we can set up a meeting as well in person. At the start of the school year, you'll get to meet the core teachers and have an evening with them, hearing about their particular core class and how they've set it up for the year as well. Okay? So I'm just going to be talking about the Discovery Inquiry class next. I hope that has been useful to you. I'm going to have a look at the Q&A and see what questions have come through. Okay, a really good question has come through with regard to learning support and extra assistance. A lot of our learning support will depend on the needs that are in the classroom. So some of our students are funded for the needs that they have, and then they might have particular assistants or teachers' aides coming into the classroom. Other times, it's as a collective, that class might have 4 or 5 students that need some support, and then we'll actually have a learning support team member coming in and working with them as a small group. Sometimes it's 8 periods a fortnight, sometimes it's only a couple of periods a fortnight. It depends on what that need might be. We still have students that will go out of the classroom to get some help up at the little house. You might have heard that term being used. Okay.
What's particularly good when there's the 3 teachers, excuse me, on the call, we virtually have a spare teacher when they're together to work with a select group that need that little bit of support. So it works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that answers that question. I've got another question here, is what do they do in Bathurst? We throw them into a race car? It's a good question. We didn't even say why we go there, did we?
Yeah, it's fantastic because we study in term 2 and term 3. We study colonisation, pre-colonisation, colonisation, and then in term 3, the gold rush. So we stay in this motel. It's on the Bathurst race track, and it's set up like a gold mine. So we go gold panning. We go to the scenic railway. We look at the historical machinery. Pete, what was the name? We went to this really old house. I can't recall the name of it, and it was set up historically. Abercrombie House. And it was like walking back in time, and this old fellow gets dressed up like a trooper. They see the authentic guns that they use. So it's walking back in time. So it's based on our gold history.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really enjoyable. It's a really good camp as a beginner for our middle school and their first couple of nights away from home for a lot of them. Yeah. And it works really well for that reason. And
for the Aboriginal Indigenous outcomes, we also have an Indigenous performer come on one of the nights, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, they love it. It's really fun. Okay, are there other activities that parents can be involved in? Absolutely. We put that out virtually at the start of every year in those parent information sessions held with the core teachers, and the offer is there for you to be able to help out in whatever ways we can. We'll be after a year group social coordinator to be able to coordinate the parents in your year group next year. So if you feel like that's the kind of thing that you'd like to do, you can. We've tried to get parents in for reading groups and for helping out with different tasks, and funnily enough, it might be just a middle school thing, but after a few months, generally your child goes, okay, Mum, that's enough. Okay, Dad, that's enough, thank you. But absolutely, we still like that support coming in. In terms of helping out with the fair, in terms of being part of what we do, all it takes is an email or getting in contact with us about some way that you would like to help out with any of the events that come out that we communicate to you. And absolutely, we'll be in touch and we'll let you know how you can help. We've had people running marine and snorkelling classes and courses for us. We've got a local helper who is running a sailing course at the moment with us. We've had one of our families, one of the dads is a horticulturalist, so came in and helped us with the gardens through here. So absolutely, those helping options are available to anyone who just wants to get in touch with us and let us know what your skills are, and we'll have a think about what ways we will be able to utilise those skills. Okay. With regard to camps and things like that, that will depend on whether we need to take parents on it. In recent years, we've needed to take a couple of parents because of their child's needs. So that would be a reason why parents would come to a camp or something like that generally. Or if we felt that we wanted to get, the numbers are such that we wanted to get into smaller groups to be able to go around Canberra or something like that, again, we might invite a couple of parents to go with the staff that we send to those sorts of places.
With the Bathurst excursion in the last few years, we've only taken parents who have their child has full support, for example, cystic fibrosis, because we also take a member of the learning support team,
Yes.
because they work so closely with our special needs students as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, another question coming through. How many children in a class? Normally we base it on around 26. Now, depending on the class and depending on the students that we feel should be in that class, sometimes we might go a little bit over, like into 27 maybe. At times, or most of the time, our classes are sitting around that 24 average. So this year, in Year 7, because we've got 4 classes, there's 19, 20 and 21 in those classes are the numbers. So they vary year in, year out, but generally speaking we tend to cap it at 26 unless there's a special reason. For instance, a maths class, a high working maths class, and we might think, well, it's better that they're in there at 28 students than having students in the class below where they don't belong, or something like that. They're the kinds of decisions that we will make as it comes up, and of course we'll communicate that to the families before we make a decision or where we would like to place them.
I think too next year, Glenn, there's 3 maths classes and 3 main classes and 4 maths classes. So that the maths classes actually are smaller
Yes.
than the core classes. So there's a good extension class, there's the good special needs class, and the ones in the middle are that happy bell curve, which
Yeah.
works well.
Yeah, ultimately where they need to be. And the doors are open with the Discovery class. It's in a separate section of middle school, not far away. It's only about 20 metres away, that classroom. But because these 2 teachers work so closely together, the doors are open a lot. But Mr. Anderson will bring them in for as many activities as are beneficial for him to be with them working on. And that happens regularly when Mr. Anderson runs through the Year 5 curriculum with Mr. Bucket and Mrs. Sinclair. What's the homework like? Well, in the diary, it's about 45 minutes for Year 5 and 6 per night, Monday to Thursday. And that's generally what we would base it on, but it's rare that it would actually hit 45 minutes exactly. But it will depend on your child, how fast they'll get through things, what's set by what teacher and all of that. We try to make it fairly simple in Year 5 in terms of, especially for the core classes, their homework is over 2 weeks and they have time to be able to hand it in. Same into Year 6. Then in Year 7, it's sort of set on a Monday and due on a Monday. So they've got this shorter time frame. And then when we get into Year 8, it's daily homework like they're going to experience for the rest of their school journey. So they'll be having to write it down, and that's due tomorrow. Oh, but I've already got 3 things due and all of that. But hopefully by then they've really built up to it, that their time management is where it needs to be. In Year 7 and 8, so Year 5 and 6, 45 minutes, Year 7 and 8, 1 hour. Generally Monday to Thursday. There might be assignments on the weekend that they just want to get finished. You might have to do work at other times, but we're hoping generally that would average out over that time. Does the school day run to the bell by periods for Year 5 and 6? Yes, it does. So we have a 6-period day. We start at 8:40 until 9:10 we have what's called nurture, and that includes chapel and assembly days and year group meeting days. The other days are spent in their core classes, talking about wellbeing, prayer time, talking about what's coming up for the week ahead, organisation type things. We have 2 periods, then recess, which is 20 minutes, then 2 periods, then lunch, which is 40 minutes, then 2 periods, then home time at 3:10. Hopefully that answers that one. I think I've answered most of the questions that have come through. Yeah, of course. Oh yes, here's one. When do students find out what class they're in? So that will come out either sort of the latter part of December or early January. On Monday we have our first meeting in terms of putting class placements together. So we'll be discussing everything, including the Discovery Enquiry class for 5, 6. And when we do that, we spend quite a lot of time actually, don't we, like talking through the class placement forms that you've sent in, making sure that we've got the mixes as close to right as they could possibly be. And generally speaking, you know, they're really well positioned, all of our students. It's not to say that with new kids coming in and people we don't know and all of that, we're getting to know them, that we might not make adjustments through the year if we need to, but we'd only do that if we see that there's a bit of a history and a bit of a concern that we're concerned about. So generally speaking, yeah, once those placements come out, you can rest assured that a significant amount of time has been put into really thinking them through. I have to trust the professionalism of my team and the Year 4 team in how they put the classes together. And my advice, if your child is a bit nervous or they don't have the friend they want or whatever, is that they need to give it a go, because you never know, they might get in there and within a couple of weeks it's the best place ever and they'd never want to move. And that's some really good advice I could give.
I think I really need to add here, particularly in Year 5, that the class placements are very deliberate. I totally agree, and there is a lot of time. Totally support Glenn with that. But the way we teach, it's no walls. Like, there's no walls. So, what would you say, Pete? 70% of the day, four out of the 7 lessons, 4 out of the 6 lessons on most days are done with the doors open. So they get to work together, and the classes are, for want of a better word, in name only. And when we do our group work, for example, they don't just work with the students in 5S or 5B or 5-6A. There will be times where the doors close, like there's separate English lessons on occasion, say novel study, but the majority of the time those doors are open. So if they go, oh, Mr. Buchan, I want to be in Mr. B's class and I got in Mrs. S, your answer to that is, that's okay, because those doors are going to be open. It's a really important message to get across to the little ones. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I'm going to now pause just for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to talk about the Discovery Inquiry class. Those students who have been nominated as possibilities for it, you should have received an email about that. Hang around. If you're just curious and would like to know more about it, of course, hang around and listen to it. And if you've got anything further you'd like to say, any further questions you want to ask, by all means, please get in contact. Okay? All right, we'll pause for a moment. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Angie.
See you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Well, hello again. Got me flying solo now, talking about the Discovery Inquiry class. And again, that's going to be taught next year by Mr. Craig Anderson as a core class, but of course I'll move around to other subjects together as a class. I'd like to start by just talking about why we have it. Well, we're in a position, I guess, at St Philip's, not just in our middle school, but also in junior school and senior school, where we sometimes get numbers that mean we can't form, say, 3 straight Year 6s or 3 straight Year 5s and that kind of thing. So our numbers have worked really well to have one class that actually doubles over with numbers. And so if we're going to double over in numbers and have 5s and 6s, we didn't want to have a composite class that gets taught, you know, a bit of Year 5 and then a bit of Year 6 and a bit of that topic, then a bit of that topic, and they're sort of getting split. We don't think that works. So the reason that we wanted to have is that we can, if we have a bigger cohort of Year 6s, we can manage it. We have a bigger cohort or a lesser cohort of Year 5s, it makes us very easy to manage by having this 5-6 class. But by having a discovery inquiry class, what it means is that we're actually bringing together mostly like-minded students who like working in a similar way. Most of them are independent workers, but ultimately we want to give them an opportunity to be able to take their learning further than they would, most likely, depending on the student, in a regular straight Year 5 class or Year 6 class. So it's not for everybody. We've had lots of people absolutely love it, and it's been the best thing for their child. We've also had some, not many, but some, who've decided it's not for my child, or they've given it a go and decided it didn't really work for my child for a number of different reasons. But having said that, I think there's a lot of advantages if your child is well suited to it. Okay? So let me tell you about some criteria for it. Okay? It is based on teacher professionalism and their discretion. So I'm very reliant upon the Year 4 teachers getting together, and they do spend some time talking this through, and then as they are together, they have the opportunity to say, right, these children are who we think are best suited to it and why. Okay? We generally get around about 10 students, 10 to 12, depends on how many Year 6s there are, as to how many Year 5s will then come into the class as well. We generally have students who work well independently. Okay? That means that Mr. Anderson or their other teachers can actually give them, say, passion projects, or can give them a task that allows them to go into it in depth and detail and doesn't need to be described to them by the teacher. They can actually be self-directed in their learning, and that has a lot of benefit for the kids who can do it. Students who have special interests and love to explore topics to their full, so including students on the autistic spectrum, they actually have really enjoyed being in this class too, because they get to really hone in and focus on something that really takes their interest, and they go beyond their usual learning to be able to find out more. So it's about depth of learning rather than breadth of learning. Those that are cruising along at core level, you might have had your child that is just finding it all a little bit too easy and don't feel challenged enough, and they'd benefit from extension and higher expectations and things like that. Okay. Students who like task-based activities, so they're given the task, they're given the criteria, and they work through them. Students who like to work with options and choices, like how they're going to present their work and all of that kind of thing. What else do we have? Students who are working far above average. It can be really good for them, because obviously, if they want to talk about physics or something like that that's beyond the normal classroom, they'll have the opportunity to do that. Students who could handle being with Year 6 at the same time, because they're a little bit older, of course. And of course, next year, they'll be on the Year 5 curriculum, and the Year 6s who are in the class will also be on the Year 5 curriculum. Now, when I say Year 5 curriculum, it's actually Stage 3 curriculum, so we can teach it whenever we want in Year 5 or 6, but we just already have a set Year 5 and a set Year 6 curriculum. The students will be going to the Bathurst excursion, including the Year 6s next year. And I want to say that not all of these criteria have to be met, but it does give you an idea to the kinds of students best suited to this class. Okay? We'll still have a number of independent, high level workers in the other 2 Year 5 classes. Not every parent or every child wants to be in this class. So what are the positives, and then some points to consider? Okay, positives of it are that they'll be with like-minded independent thinkers and workers, and they'll do a lot of group work and a lot of problem solving. The work ethic amongst the students is they're generally the kinds of kids that like to get things done. Deeper learning opportunities, I think I've said enough about that. Exploring topics in depth dependent upon interest, I've said that. Exposure to some special events, like there's some competitions and things that we can enter with them. Unfortunately, this year we weren't able to compete in a couple of those. Producing high quality products through mastery, more teamwork I've mentioned, project and problem-based learning, I've said all of those things. But some points to consider: the Year 6s will be in the class, as I've said, as well. There's high work standards, and that's one of the things that has been a little bit hard for some of our students to come to grips with. If they're kind of finding it hard to get themselves up for all activities, it can sometimes be a little bit more challenging for them, and they feel like sometimes they don't feel like they get the break that they'd normally get, they feel they need. But that's, again, not that often once the staff in Year 4 have chosen the right kids. And the speed at which work is performed, it's generally a bit quicker and a bit faster. But it doesn't mean that we get to the end of the curriculum in term 3 or anything like that. It just means that we might actually add in additional things within it. Or then we might even slow it down because they're working on a passion project. They might actually take 2 weeks to get through that while the other classes are moving through the program. So that just about covers the positives and some points to consider. Here is some work up on your screen that Mr. Anderson sent through. He's written, students often present their information in different ways. Yeah, so he'll give them choice over, if they're doing any task. Year 5 generally might get told, right, we're going to do a PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Anderson will go, look, you can do a podcast, you can do a video, you can do a movie, all of that. Because he knows that these are independent workers that will take it and be able to work with any of those formats or media. Students are challenged to present their knowledge and understanding in a creative way. So yeah, a lot of creative tasks as well. And you might have seen some pictures earlier of the students in woodwork. Well, that was for science. They were looking at being able to build and create and construct some wood to help them with a topic that they're currently doing. Challenging topics to extend their thinking, like there's an example there by Sienna, The Truth Behind Reality TV, and you can sort of see the way that she's writing there. It's at probably a little bit more of an advanced level to Year 5 or Year 6, so she would get, or there'd be an expectation that she would do work beyond the basics of that topic because of where she's at with her learning. I love the fact that the students also get to present to other classes and expert audiences at times. So they won't just be presenting in front of their class, but we know that they can step up and then stand up in front of older kids or parents or whatever and be able to present their learning, which the other classes would find a bit more challenging, but we think that this is the kind of challenge that the Discovery Enquiry kids should have and do have. I would just like to play a little bit of audio here, and this is a comment or some comments made by Sienna, and you can see her there on the right hand side of your screen, and that's them in woodwork the other day constructing a pinball machine, and that was all in science to do with the physics and movement and forces and all of those sorts of things. So hopefully this comes through your speaker loud and clear.
I had many highlights being in 5-6A, but here are my favourites. Being able to learn in an environment that it's easy to work in, having a teacher that understands me, a great level of work and challenge, and my friends. Some advice I have for parents of students of Year 4 considering this class are: you won't be separated from your other friends other than 5-6A next year, since you'll be doing the same curriculum as everyone else, with some minor adjustments. You will get to see them for writing tasks and etc. The work isn't an overload. It's normal once you get used to it, and you won't even notice the difference. Number 3. Mr. A is a lot of fun. He's understanding and can help you with nearly anything. There aren't many disadvantages to this class, but here are some minor things that I can think of. Some people, but everyone's different, might find this class a bit too challenging at some stages, even though it's easy to get used to. Number 2, if you're in the backwards curriculum, Year 5's doing Year 6, it can be difficult at times, but luckily next year, Grade 5 will be doing Grade 5. 5-6A has been one of the best classes for me and has helped me improve a lot.
Just before I get to sign off and say thank you for tonight, there's a couple of questions that have come through in the Q&A. Really good questions. And one of them is, if it doesn't work out for my child, what options do I have? Well, as Sienna actually just mentioned there, this year that you're going into, which is 2021, the odd year, is actually the year where Year 5s are running the Year 5 curriculum, so that if they stepped out of the Discovery Inquiry class, they could go into the other Year 5s if there was a real need for it, and we'd gone through the processes involved in sort of talking about it, thinking about other options, going through strategies to help them before we sort of say, you know what, that's okay. In the alternate year, it's a little bit trickier in that sometimes students have to just sort of learn more that they might have already learnt the previous year. Depends on when they step out. Generally speaking, if we can see that it's not working out for them, we might make that decision a little bit earlier, but for next year, there's a bit of an advantage, not a major one, but a little bit of an advantage in that if something did happen, they'd step out of Year 5 into a Year 5 classroom, or in Year 6, the same deal. But generally speaking, we'd like to think that, you know, it's really going to suit those children who have been chosen for the class. The next question that I have here is, what happens when they go into Year 6? Do they stay in the same class with the new Year 5s? Absolutely. I'm sorry if that hasn't sort of come through clearly enough. Yeah. So in the following year, when they're in Year 6, so 2022, they'll have the current Year 3s who will be moving up into Year 5 in that year with them. And again, they would be students chosen who we think would work really well with your children when they're in Year 6. Okay, so yeah, and it works quite well again because we've got like-minded workers and similar kind of thinkers and similar personalities in many respects as well. It actually does give a little bit of, I guess, an advantage there where, you know, it doesn't matter whether they're in Year 5 or 6. Funnily enough, we've got Year 5s who are older than kids in Year 6, and we've got Year 6s that are older than kids in Year 7 currently. So the age difference isn't dramatic, especially when you're putting fairly like-minded workers all together. Well, I think that's about the end of the Q&A that's come through from here. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for your child to be in this class if they're well suited to it. At the moment, it's we've got 12 students put aside for it coming up from Year 4 into Year 5, and it will depend on class placements and discussions. As I say, that's happening next week before we decide whether or not there's further opportunity. If you're a parent who didn't receive an email but sort of thinks, oh, you know what, my child really could be in that, well, it's a good idea to have a chat to your child's core teacher and maybe have a discussion about, you know, what their thoughts were or why it might be that they haven't chosen your child. I did have some that they said they considered but were on sort of the second list or a reserve list as well if there were more spots opening up and available. But I won't know that until next week, and then we will send them out formally, as I say, late December or early January. We're not sure at this point when Foundation of St Philip's will want all of that information put into our systems, and we'll go from there. Anyway, I hope this has been beneficial to you. We've probably gone a little bit longer than what I thought we would, but I think we've covered everything that we would like to have covered tonight. And thank you for joining us. Enjoy your evening, and I look forward to working with you over the next 4 years of your children being in middle school. All the very best.